Good afternoon, folks. And we're going to do multiple parts about this. Maybe 3. I'll have to think about it. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the name Benedict Arnold? I mean, most of us all hear the name, all consider him a traitor. Considering he defected to the British right after when he wanted to have, because the British were taxing him like crazy. He was a wealthy businessman, and they're taxing him like crazy. Taxing him to the point where he couldn't really hold anything together. So he was helping the cause of the colonials. So that's why he defected to, that's why he went to the American side. But who really betrayed America here? Did he betray America, or did America betray him? There's a lot of angles to look at this. Benedict Arnold was a well-decorated American soldier. Well-feared, regardless what side you look at him. Regardless if you looked at him as a traitor or an American hero. He was well scared. I mean, let's look at the scenarios here. Benedict Arnold, let's go down the path of how it all happened. First off, Benedict Arnold was a captain in the colonial army at Green, at the Battle of Concord in Lexington and Concord. He was the captain there. Got promoted to colonel. And then he was colonel all the way up there till he made it to Ticonderoga. Became a general after that. Became a brigadier general. Made it up to... But literally, Congress passed him over for lots of people. General Washington pretty much looked at him as if he was the hero of everything. But the question is, was he really in it for himself, or was he in it for the Americans' cause? Kind of like how Japan was in it for themselves during World War I. Considering they weren't even thinking about giving the land back to the British when they invaded China during World War I. Or were they really not? That's the question we all have in for this. Was Benedict Arnold in it for himself, or was he actually in it for the American cause? I mean, he wanted to get fame. He wanted to get the fame that he always wanted. And he was quite the famous person. But here's the view that we all look at for Benedict Arnold. Benedict Arnold was looked by a lot of people who was charging. Horatio Gates and Benedict Arnold are two of the most controversial figures ever. Benedict Arnold being mostly the traitor. Horatio Gates being the person that's more cautious than anything, wanted to go at a cautious approach at Saratoga. While Benedict Arnold charged at the hill, charged at the roundouts, or however that's pronounced, I can't remember. He charged up the hill and ordered a retreat back to base. Benedict Arnold and him had a furious outing. But when Benedict Arnold charged out there against all orders and was credited for the victory, he wanted to go and charge the middle, and charge right at the middle, and pretty much he wanted to send a bayonet charge. He wanted to fix bayonets and charge right at the British and force them in retreat from Saratoga, and which is exactly what he did, and forced them to withdraw back to their main lines, back to where they once were, out of Freeman's Farm, and back over to, this was at Baming Heights, back to Freeman's Farm, and back behind where they were before, back to the original lines, and then surround them. And he was wounded in action. But he kept moving. He ordered his troops to keep on moving, which is exactly what he did. Even in Quebec City, when he lost, he was wounded, but it was still passed up as Brigadier General. Over as Brigadier General. His promotion during his wounded in action promoted him to Brigadier General. But Benedict Arnold wanted to make things stronger. During his promotion, Benedict Arnold wanted to make the strong attack at Saratoga. He made it loud and clear, we need to attack and we need to force the British to retreat. And sure enough, he did. So, and there was multiple other battles that Benedict Arnold did, including other battles but they still feared him, regardless. Because he pretty much made his presence be felt and was strong. Now, what led to this disillusion between Benedict Arnold and the United States? There's so many theories, but we're going to go down the theory list of what we all mostly know. First off, Congress passed above him, but the Battle of Saratoga, we'll go with that one first. Horatio Gates didn't even bother crediting Benedict Arnold of any credit, despite being behind the lines, while Benedict Arnold was at the front of the lines taking battle aims. And he claimed, and even said to Gates during the argument, these guys have more honor than what we ever have, something that you are lacking. Which is exactly what he lacked, honor. So he retreated, and that's something that he was failed at Camden, at the Battle of Camden, a disaster for the Americans when the British pretty much trounced them. But as for Washington, Gates was also a critic of Washington. Gates wanted to have power as well. But the difference between Gates and him, Gates wanted to take power from Washington because he didn't feel he was in good after a whole bunch of defeats. But Gates made it very soundly clear that he wanted to make it more powerful than Arnold. Gates wanted to take command over Washington and undermined Washington, but Washington made it perfectly clear that he was going to win at Trenton, and which is exactly what he did. That will come at another time. But, however, Congress passed up on Arnold, because even though he was successful at Saratoga, and he was the one that led the charge at Saratoga, they passed upon him, handing it over to Horatio Gates. Now, Horatio Gates, a British-born citizen, given command to Benedict Arnold, but Benedict Arnold, who was born here in America, because his great-grandpa was actually a senator of, I can't remember, New Hampshire, I think? I have to look that up. My mind's drawing a little blank here. I'm getting old. But back to that, they passed him up on promotions, even despite Washington saying, I strongly urge you to give Benedict Arnold the promotion of Major General. After he resigned his commission, he said, I will... Then he commanded West Point. In 1778, he was given the command of West Point as Major General, because after he sent his resignation to Washington, he refused to accept his resignation, because Washington and Benedict Arnold would not refuse. Now, here's a movie I want you all to watch who are watching this. Benedict Arnold, Question of Valor, Question of Honor. That's something I want you to watch, because that pretty much lays out how Benedict Arnold won the war, won it all. Kelsey Grammer, and I can't remember who is George Washington. You'll have to see who else is in it, but it's literally lays out how it all occurred. And then Major Andre and Arnold met up, giving out plans of how to take over West Point. But his plans were foiled, and West Point was never taken over. And the United States prevailed over the British, and they ended up winning the war. Despite Benedict Arnold's attacks on Richmond and other things, while he was wearing the British uniform, he still managed not to pull out any big-time victories because the United States pretty much held strong. George Washington, despite his name not being on the Boot Monument in New York, it says, right here stands the man who saved America. He's the man who pretty much you want to think about who saved America, because literally we were on the brink of defeat. Despite George Washington also pulling off a big-time win over the sleeping Hessians. We'll talk about those two in particular battles at another later time. But Benedict Arnold pretty much, was betrayed by them. But did that force him? But then you also have his wife Peggy, who was a loyalist, who was pretty much connected to a loyalist, pushing him to that limit to defection. That's another question. Did she force him into defection, or was this all in his own power? 20,000 pounds, equivalent to, I don't know how much money that would be in American during that time frame, how much American money that is during that time frame, but it literally almost made it all come to light. The Americans pulled off a big win over the British at Saratoga. The Colonel Howe failed to pull off any kind of victory against the Americans. The Hessians failed big time. Arnold pretty much pummeled everyone. But with that being said, hit the like button and hit the bell for notifications. With that being said, I'll come back with my second segment on Benedict Arnold. With that being said, I'm out of here. Peace.